I want to welcome everybody to the show. My name is William Myers, and I am the author of the Philadelphia Legal Series and the host of this podcast, Righting Wrongs, on the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. Today, I have the honor of talking with Lee Goldberg, who is a #1 New York Times best-selling author of 30 novels. He is a two-time Edgar Award nominee, a two-time Shamus Award nominee, TV producer and writer. He's written for Diagnosis Murder, Sequest, Monk. He's the co-creator of the Mystery 101 series of Hallmark movies, and he's an international television consultant. We're going to talk about Lee's career, about writing, and about his book, his latest book, Bone Canyon, which is the sequel to Lost Hills, which features the protagonist, Eve Ronan, who I think is going to become an iconic protagonist. Lee, welcome to the show.
Thank you. This is a big relief. When I heard a lawyer want to talk to me, I was certain it's going to be a deposition. So now I can relax and just be myself and don't feel vulnerable without having legal counsel with me.
Don't worry about it. Just let me know where you want me to send the bill.
Okay.
So it seems like you've had your hand in just about everything. Why don't you start out by telling us how you got into it, how you got into TV writing, how you got into novel writing?
Well, there's a long story. I'll just tell you a short version. My mother was a feature writer for the Contra Costa Times in Northern California, and my father was the anchorman on KPIX, the CBS affiliate. And he always talked like this, even in casual conversation. He always talked like he was on camera and had the same insincere smile on his face that I have right now. So television and writing were always integral parts of my life, even growing up. I was never intimidated by either industry and found a way to sort of drive a path in the middle. Worked in TV and worked in books. I put myself through school as a freelance writer, writing for the Los Angeles Times, American Film, San Francisco Chronicle, Playgirl, anybody who would take my stuff. And because my dad had that anchorman voice, I was able to fake my voice on phone interviews. So people didn't know I was 17 years old, 16 years old. And while I was in college at UCLA, I befriended a professor who wrote thrillers for Pinnacle Books, very Robert Ludlum-like thrillers that were very successful. And they came to him and asked him if he'd write a men's action adventure series.
Okay.
And he said he wasn't hungry enough, stupid enough, or desperate enough to write a book like that. They had titles like The Executioner, The Destroyer, The Defecator, The Drooler. You found them at finer 7-Elevens and gas stations around the country, particularly in the South. But he said he knew somebody who was, and he recommended me. And I knew Lee Goldberg wasn't a real action-packed name. So I came up with the pseudonym Ian for Ian Fleming, and Ludlow, so I'd be on the shelf next to Robert Ludlum, the biggest selling author in America at the time. And my first book, 357 Vigilante, that came out while I was still a college student, was a huge success. New World Pictures bought the movie rights, hired me to write the script, and my career was born. I'm going to move my head, and you can see the original painting for one of those Vigilante novels. Very cool. Painting, the upper part, the guy with the gun always stayed the same, but they repainted the bottom portion to reflect whatever was happening in the book. The books came out and did really well, but right when my royalties were due, the publisher went out of business, so I never saw a dime. But it did launch my career, and I've been writing ever since for television and books and film.
What do you what's more fun for you, writing for TV or writing the novels?
They're two very different activities. When you write for television, prior to the pandemic, you're in a room full of other writers, and it's a real energized, competitive, exciting situation. It can bring out the best or the worst in you, depending on your personality, but it's great. And the story reflects the talents and insights of everybody in the room, and it's a real group effort, and you're part of something bigger. Also, when you write for television, what you're essentially writing in a screenplay is a blueprint that other professionals are going to use to apply their craft. Directors, set designers, location scouts, actors. So it's not a prose document, and it leaves a lot of room for other input. When you're writing a novel, you are the director, you are the location manager, you are the wardrobe person. You're entirely by yourself. And in a script, all action and character is conveyed through what people say and do. If you don't see it or hear it, it doesn't exist. In a book, you've got to supply the entire world. Now, what I like about books is I don't have to worry about the feedback or entertain the feedback of other people or worry about the budget or the shooting schedule or any of those things. But it's also very lonely and I can't turn to anybody for help. And it takes me longer to write a book than it does to write a screenplay.
Right.
But there are distinct pleasures and drawbacks in both. The money tends to be better, at least immediately in television. There's Writers Guild minimums for an hour-long teleplay and all that. It takes some time to be a writer, an author, and you have to do well at it before you're earning anywhere near what you can make in television.
Right. So when you're doing research for books, tell me what's the best thing, the most fun thing that you ever got to do doing research for a book?
That's hard because I do a lot of fun things. I am a big believer in boots on the ground. And if I'm writing a big international thriller, I will go to the locations I'm writing about. Because I think there's no substitute for walking down the streets, smelling those smells, seeing those details, talking to the people. It's stuff you can't get from Google Earth or watching Rick Steves or Anthony Bourdain or any of the other cheats. I mean, I've had to do that occasionally by guidebooks and things for places I can't go, Syria. But otherwise, I try to go there. But also for my police procedurals, I interview a lot of cops, and I go to because I have friends in law enforcement. I get invited to things that the public is not usually invited to: autopsies, homicide investigator training conferences, interrogation, learning how to interrogate, those kind of things. Right. Going to the police academy, firing guns and stuff, doing pit maneuvers. So I've had lots of fun. I've flown for an evening with the helicopter patrol and the LAPD.
Oh, very cool.
It just gives you insights. The danger when you do that kind of research, whether you're flying to distant locations or taking part in a homicide conference or observing an autopsy, is the inclination to want to prove you've done all the research, to put on the page all these details so the reader will know you were there. And it's boring. And all I'm looking for is to find the one key fact, the one piece of reality that I can use to ground my story in some sort of believability, and I make up the rest. I don't feel and I also believe all the stuff I do for research will inform what my characters say and do. I don't need to show off. There are authors who just go into unbelievable detail about the murder book and what color the section dividers are and what font they're using, and I mean, it's stuff that doesn't matter, doesn't move the story forward or reveal character.
Would you have made a good cop?
I'm sorry?
Would you have made a good cop?
No. I'm a terrible liar. I'm fat and slovenly. I couldn't really chase after anybody. I'm a coward. In fact, that question sort of informed my book, True Fiction, which is about a guy who writes thrillers who ends up having to do what his characters would do and discovers the big difference between making this crap up and having to live it.
Right. Whose name, by the way, is
Ian Ludlow.
Yeah, I love that series. Absolutely love that series.
Oh, thank you.
So let me talk about Eve Ronin and Bone Canyon. Lost Hills was the first book, and Eve Ronin is the youngest homicide detective in LA County Sheriff's Department, and she has a colorful story for how that happened. And can you share that with us without a spoiler?
No, I signed a non-disclosure agreement with my publisher. Of course I can share it with you. Eve Ronin was a mere deputy, and she was off duty riding her bike in the Santa Monica Mountains when she saw a Hollywood movie star beating the crap out of his girlfriend. And she basically interceded and took this guy down. But she did it in front of an audience, so to speak, a bunch of people with phones. And her takedown of this Hollywood star, who was the lead in the Jason Bourne type movies, went viral. And overnight, she was this media sensation at a time when the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department was besieged with scandal. They needed some positive news. They wanted to keep moving her to the front of the news cycle. So they ended up promoting her to homicide. And it's a job she wants, but frankly doesn't have the experience or the qualifications for. So she finds herself set up for failure. Her fellow cops don't like her there. She knows in her heart she doesn't have the experience. So she's constantly having to prove herself, and the media is watching her.
Right.
So there are high expectations all the way around, and she catches in the first book a case that would that would tax even the most experienced homicide detective. And while she makes lots of mistakes and makes lots of mistakes in the new book, Bone Canyon, she still has an innate skill. Maybe it's rough. Maybe she hasn't learned from experience yet, but she does have the instincts. And despite her own naivete and inexperience, she does manage to do the job.
Now, one of the things that comes up in Bone Canyon, she's being hounded by her parents who were in the industry to help create a TV show based around her. What is her view of the industry?
Well, she's seen how the industry chews up. I mean, you can't really live in the Los Angeles area and not have some relationship with the entertainment industry. This is a company town, and just about everybody has 1 or 2 or 3 degrees of separation from a television show or a movie. Plus, the entire city is a soundstage. All of our streets they're shooting on all the time. I mean, you drive by buildings, and a hotel that in Woodland Hills has been FBI headquarters. It's been hospitals. It's been in every TV show. So we're living every day, all of us here in LA, in a fantasy world. But she's also seen how Hollywood can grind people up and how Hollywood can take advantage of people. So her father was a journeyman television director and not a swell guy. And she has seen how he's used people to further his career. And her mother has been sort of on the periphery of Hollywood. She's been a Hollywood extra. Those are the people you see in the background walking and talking while silently walking and talking while the heroes are having their conversation. They're basically set dressing that with a heartbeat. And her mom has been striving to become an actor, and Eve knows it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So she has a love-hate relationship. Not love. She has a hate relationship with Hollywood. On the other hand, her deft manipulation of the media got her the job she has now. So as much as she likes to pretend that she doesn't like the media attention and that she's not using it, she is using it. She is a hypocrite. And I think that tension is some of the fun of the book, that she's not the perfect person that she likes to see herself as. And she does feel a certain family responsibility. A lot of people are throwing money at her and opportunities at her that her family could really use. Yeah. So it's a push-pull. And then there's the irony that Hollywood has come and optioned my Eve Ronin novels. So, like, I could be in a situation where there's an Eve Ronin TV series. In reality, at the same time, I'm dealing with the fictional Eve Ronin TV series in my books.
I hope that's the case, because I really do like the character and I like the books. So set the stage for Bone Canyon. What's the inciting incident? What's the crime that Eve sets about to solve?
Well, the inciting incident is right behind you is wallpaper. A massive wildfire that moved through Los Angeles and scorched hundreds of thousands of acres and a bunch of shrubs and foliage that haven't burned in decades. And by wiping the hills clean, have revealed a lot of secrets, a lot of bodies, a lot of cars, a lot of things that nobody was expecting. And Eve is sort of on the detail that's examining all the human bones that are being found in the canyons. By the way, I'm not making that up. That actually happened after the wildfire.
Right.
They found amazing things that have been executed. They found a couple that disappeared years ago on their way back from LAX. They found a woman's body, a woman who wandered off from a museum a few years ago. She had Alzheimer's, found her body down there. I mean, they found amazing things, a plane wreckage. They're trying to figure out if it was an actual plane or a hull left over from a movie shoot. I mean, it's fascinating. So what happens is some bones are found of a woman who disappeared a few years ago, and Eve starts looking into her disappearance and uncovers what may be a conspiracy within the sheriff's department, once again pitting her against her own.
Right. And I know that her fellow sheriffs, because of how she got the job and how inexperienced she is, they all have a hostility toward her, from the start, and she has to fight against that. Who are some of her allies in this?
She has a partner named Duncan Pavone, who's only a few weeks away from retirement, who's a walking cliche. I mean, he's waiting to catch a bullet. Right. But he initially is as skeptical about her as everybody else, but he's also leaving, so he doesn't give a damn. He understands why he was paired up with this woman nobody wants to be with, because he's on his way out the door anyway. But after their first case together, he realizes she really has something. She has some talent, and he becomes sort of a father figure to her, trying to impart some wisdom, basically trying to get her to relax, calm down, find some friends, don't be such a loner, don't be so relentless.
Mm.
He realizes she's to use a cliche, a diamond in the rough, and he sort of runs interference for her. And she has a interesting symbiotic relationship with the sheriff, who's using her for his own ends, and she's using him. Neither one of them trust each other, and it's an interesting relationship. What
Right.
I don't want to do, well, the way these books came about, was I wanted to write a police procedural, but they've been done to death. I'm just so tired of the middle-aged cop who's an alcoholic, or his family was murdered by serial killers, or he's got a serial killer in his past. His boss hates him. He's a brilliant detective, but no one seems to understand him. I'm just tired of it. So I came up with a character I thought would be very different, who's young, in a job she doesn't deserve, who
Right.
doesn't have all the answers, who has a family, who doesn't have a dark past, who doesn't have a serial killer in her history, who hasn't got a alcoholism or some other addiction. That would be something fresh. And also, Los Angeles has been written about to death. I mean, what am I going to say that Joseph Wambaugh or Michael Connelly and Robert Craze and Raymond Chandler haven't said better? So I found a corner of Los Angeles that hasn't been written about. The Lost Hills jurisdiction of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, sort of an island within urban Los Angeles that embodies so many interesting social and cultural and economic strata. It's really a world, a planet unto itself, rife with conflict. And I could write about it, hopefully, for a dozen books, depending on how well my next one does.
Okay. Are you plotting, I guess, are you plotting the third book or plotting the fourth book? And the third book is already.
The third book comes out in October. It's called Gated Prey and is already available for pre-order from Amazon. Picks up only a couple weeks after Bone Canyon. And I don't know yet whether there'll be a fourth book. I have to wait and see whether Amazon Publishing wants to throw a giant suitcase of money at me to do another book.
Okay.
I mean, I want to earn what you're earning. I want to be as powerful and influential as you are.
I want to be as powerful and influential as I am. No. So in the book, and I have to bring this up. The thing that I love about all your books is your sense of humor comes out in all the books. And in this book, I know you make a reference to something that was in the true fiction book, the series Hollywood and the Vine.
Yeah.
Right? Half man, half vine, all cop. And one of the characters in Bone Canyon is the producer of the horror classic Bloodbath Day Camp for Girls. Do you have to fight yourself? Because I know you're a funny person. I know you have a great sense of humor. Do you have to fight yourself not to put in all the funny lines that you want to?
I'm aware of the tone I want to strike in each book that I write. Mm-hmm. The Eve Ronin books are police procedurals. However, I'm a firm believer that there is humor in all aspects of life. I don't believe a novel that is humorless. There are some best-selling crime novels with not a single moment to smile about. And I just don't think that's real. I know in my own life, where I've had some horrible tragedies, just like everybody watching now, there's always also been some humor. There's always also been some levity. Even in the midst of the worst, there's been some humor. I mean, I'll give you an example from my own life. My mom was very ill. She was dying. The doctor said, you better get your family here right away because she has a do not resuscitate order or no extreme measures. So once we pull off this breathing machine, she's done. So I got all the family together. We're all around her bed. They remove the device and she passes away very peacefully. Mm-hmm. The what do you call the chaplain at the hospital comes in and he says, would you like me to say a few words for your mother? Well, we are not a religious family and we're Jewish, but my sister, that's an interesting Freudian slip. My sister likes to hedge bets with the man upstairs. So she said, sure, give us a prayer. So he came out and he did his thing. He said, his stuff, and it was sweet and fine. And when he was done, he said, how was that? And my sister said, it was very nice. Thank you. And he goes, yes. Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I've been on sabbatical for a year. This is my first death. Since I got back, I thought maybe I'd lost my mojo, but I've still got it. You've been terrific. Sorry for your loss, but woo. And he walked out.
Oh my God.
And we just started laughing. Mom would have loved it. And my brother, who's a writer as well, a novelist as well, he raised his hand and said, I have dibs on this. To write. And the thing is, we had not been there to witness it.
Right,
We
right.
wouldn't have believed it. I mean, it was so inappropriate, but it's also hilariously funny at one of the saddest times of our lives. And I mean, I could give you another example. I had a bad accident, another hospital story, but I had a bad accident a few years ago and broke both of my arms. One of them very severely, ended up having multiple surgeries. But I'm in the emergency room, and they informed my wife that I have 2 broken arms, and I'm not gonna be able to do anything for a while. My wife goes, "Okay." Doctor says, "I don't think you understand. Your husband has 2 broken arms. It's gonna be like being in a straitjacket. He's
Yeah.
not gonna be able to do anything." Just okay. He's like, "I still don't think you're getting it. Anything you could do with your hands and arms, he's not going to be able to do
Yeah.
for a while."
Uh-huh.
Long silence. My wife says, "Would it be possible for you to put him on a liquid diet?" And I'm there, you all bloody and everything. I'm laughing. The doctor's laughing. But you see, I believe in humor that comes from character and situation, not just giving one-liners. And so in the course of Bone Canyon, I believe I have humor there where it's appropriate, where it arises out of character, not a cheap shot. It's not black humor about people's loss and death and the kind of stuff that it's inappropriate. I see in other books where their idea of humor is to make light of a horrible situation at the worst possible time. I just believe that everybody's life has humor in it every single day, good or bad. And I try to reflect that in Bone Canyon. True Fiction, my thriller about the writer who
Love
writes
that
thrillers
book.
and
I
becomes
love
one,
that book.
that takes place in a world that I like to call heightened reality. So I have broader characters,
Right,
more jokes, but there's still a level of reality to it, so that you buy into it. Another good example is I worked for years on the TV show Monk,
right.
a detective with an obsessive compulsive disorder. I also wrote 15 Monk novels. And the key to that character, the key to why it worked, because it easily could have become Inspector Clouseau or Maxwell Smart. But the
Right.
reason it didn't is because he had an innate sadness, an innate tragedy.
Mhm.
You really cared about this man. He wasn't a cartoon character. So
Yeah.
it was humor, but also a lot of sentimentality and heartbreak and loss. So the humor became real as a reflection of his difficulty dealing with a world that terrified him, but that he had to confront anyway and was courageously doing. And at the same time was bringing out his masterful abilities at deduction and being able to see details and solve crimes. That his greatest weakness is also his greatest strength. So by having that underlying level of truth and never losing the humanity of the character, you could get away with all that humor. It never became slapstick.
Right. So Eve, let me get back to Eve Ronan then. What do you think Eve Ronan's core weakness is, if she has one, or what do you think her core strength is?
Her core strength is also her core weakness, and that's her tenacity, her relentless devotion to doing her job. It gives her a tunnel vision. It's also self-destructive. Once she gets on a case, everything else goes by the wayside. And you might be able to pull that off when you're in your early 20s, but it's going to eat you alive. But also blinds her to things that are right in front of her. She makes some big mistakes, and there's a human cost in Bone Canyon.
Right.
And I want her to keep making mistakes, to be honest with you. I think for me, the fun is in having a character who's not perfect. She's not Harry Bosch or John Rebus or these cops who know how good they are, and everybody else just doesn't understand how good they are. She doesn't have that experience to draw upon, and she knows her successes have also come with a lot of luck. Yet she does have a keen eye for detail, and she does see things that other people don't see by virtue of her lack of experience. She's not burdened by what cops might call their situational common sense. She
Right.
comes into it fresh. She's a virgin at every crime scene.
So I've heard authors say that when they sit down and they write a character, sometimes they have an idea in their mind of who the character is, but as they're writing the character, the character will rebel a little bit and say things or think things different than the writer would have anticipated when they started. Does that happen with you? Did it happen with Eve Ronan or other characters?
It has happened with me. Oddly, though, it hasn't happened with Eve Ronan. She came to me sort of fully formed, and she doesn't surprise me all that much in terms of when I'm writing her. She starts doing and saying things I wasn't expecting.
Right.
It happens to me all the time with other characters. It happened to me even when I was writing Monk. I'd be surprised by some of the reactions that would come out. And there was a character in True Fiction that I hadn't intended to continue, but I liked him so much that that character became a regular part of the, a much bigger part of the book than I had intended, and even showed up in the third book in the series in a big way. So I keep my mind open to opportunity when I see something that's working, and I'm a big believer in outlining your books, and I
Mhm.
always start writing with outline. In fact, here is the outline and research for the book I'm writing now. That doesn't mean I'm not going to deviate from it, but at least I have it, right here. I know where I'm going,
Mhm.
but I'm willing to change. And my outline evolves as I'm writing my books. I call my outlines living outlines because I finish them about 2 or 3 weeks before I finish the book. So I'm
Okay.
always adjusting the outline to take into account changes I've made while I'm writing. Um, I've had people I wanted to have die. They were supposed to die that didn't die, and
Right.
that.
Right.
But I always know who done it. I always know what the clues are that's going to,
Mhm.
when I'm writing a mystery. I'm not making that up. And I think most of the time when I'm reading a book where an author has made up as he or she is going along, I can tell. I can see the treading water. I can see the pieces that don't fit. I can see the struggle at the end to have things make sense.
Yeah.
And I don't appreciate it. I don't like it.
Yeah. How much of your dialogue is like when you decide I'm going to write a scene, it's going to have these two characters, here's what they're going to talk about, and then you start actually writing the dialogue. How much of what comes out is organic, as though you were really two people having a conversation, and
All
how
of
much
it.
is all of it?
All of it. All I know going into a scene like that is what the conflict is, how these two people have a different point of view on what's going on, or different goals they want to achieve. And I
Right.
know what my hero wants to achieve. And if it's a mystery, I know what piece of information I want to come out as a result of this exchange, or what new direction in the investigation I want to come out of the exchange. But how I get there often surprises me. And sometimes I won't like what I've done and I'll trash it and go back and start again. I was
Right.
doing that last night. In fact, I didn't like what I wrote and I threw it out and started over again with the characters, had them come at it from a different direction. And sometimes I'll surprise myself. I'll have them talking and I'll realize I've hit some gold and change what I had in mind for that scene, that I found a new conflict or a new point of view, or even another way to get at that clue that maybe shouldn't come in this scene, but a different scene where I could learn something else that I had planned later on, learn it here instead. You have to be open to those kind of organic changes.
I could tell talking with you that you still love it, that you're still fully engaged in it.
Oh, have I got you
You
fooled?
know?
I just put in a job application at Arby's because my talent has disappeared, whatever little I had. The book I'm writing now is just kicking my butt. I mean,
Can you tell us what kind of book it is?
I don't want to give away too much, but it's a challenge for me. It's unlike anything I've written before. It's a part police procedural, part historical, and the two novels come together, or two timelines come together on a case. And I'm very comfortable with the police procedural part, but the historical part, um, and all the research I've had to do has really been difficult. Plus, figuring out when to shift back and forth, dramatically to keep, and not to have my readers ahead of my characters.
Right.
It's just driving me crazy.
How
I'm
long does
hoping Amazon orders my fourth Eve Ronin book so I can set this aside and write something
it,
I'm much more comfortable with.
yeah. How long does it typically take you to write a novel?
5 months.
5 months?
Typically, I write 2 books a year. 5 months for each book, and then I have a month for relaxing and outlining, the next book and doing whatever research is necessary. Though I do the research ongoing while I'm writing the book.
Right.
What's nice about the Eve Ronin novels is they take place in the neighborhood where I live, so I don't have to do that much research
Yeah.
beyond getting in my car and driving around. I can do a lot of it over the last book I wrote, Gated Prey, was during the pandemic. I did all my research in Zoom
Mhm.
conversations like this, or over the phone, or just got in my car or hiked around or whatever. Um, but ordinarily, like this historical novel, I had to wait till things loosened up a little bit with the pandemic to go out and do some of the research, some ways away from where I live.
Right.
That was harder.
I'll bet. So let me conclude with this. Do you want to give anyone a shout out?
Give anyone a shout out?
You want to give anyone a shout out? Say thank you to anyone.
No, not really. Unless you're giving me an award. You have an Oscar for me, an Edgar. I mean, I've got no one to thank for this interview. Thank you for not grilling me and making me cry. I mean, there are some people who've interviewed me who just reduced me to psychological mush, probing my relationship with my family and my own insecurities and my, utter falsehoods in life. They'll bring people from my past and confront me with my lies. It's just horrible. This has been much easier.
No, this is you're a favorable witness. So I'm throwing you softballs. Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, so let me conclude. This is William Myers, and you're listening or you're watching Righting Wrongs on the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. I've been talking to Lee Goldberg about Bone Canyon and his career as a writer and a TV writer and a TV producer, and I've had a great time doing it. Lee, do you want to offer up your social media credentials?
Yeah, I'm very, very hard to find on social media. I'm at leegoldberg.com, and I'm at Lee Goldberg on Twitter, and I'm at Lee Goldberg on Facebook. The only place I'm not at is William Myers.
There you go. And that's where I am. You can look me up at www.William L. Myers Jr. Lee, thank you. Thank you for this conversation.
My pleasure.
Had a great time.